would be harder. We thought you could actually earn your money, but that was like super easy. So we're not going to pay you the full 1,000. We'll give you half or 1/10. It really depends on the version of the legend. And some of the legends, they don't pay him at all. And at that point, the Pied Piper, his son gets covered by clouds, and the Pied Piper gets all dramatic, and he goes, I will return, and I will get my money. In a true act of revenge, I will do that. Stomps off. Townspeople was like, that wasn't very funny. I thought Jason was going to come up with a funny joke. And they're like, no. You're just setting the scene. So anyways, Pied Piper leaves. Now, this is where stuff gets interesting. June 26th, 1284. That's a big festival day. It's like the day of like St. Paul and Mary or something like that. There's a big festival day. So all the adults were in church in the town. But the kids weren't. Kids are out having a ball. Kids are eating all your cheese, marrying your daughter, running for mayor. And the Pied Piper shows up, but this time he's wearing all green. The clothes of a hunter. Which is kind of badass, actually. He shows up in all green this time. Starts playing his flute. And the kids in town hear the music and get up and start kind of boogieing, following him. Now, all the parents are in church, so there's no witnesses to this, but there's 3 kids who do see what's happening, because they're able to report it later on. And the 3 kids, one of them was blind, so he didn't know where to go, he didn't know where to dance, he didn't know the right dance moves, he was bumping into everyone, he didn't know what path they were taking. I don't know why he couldn't hear the flute, the direction of the flute, but he couldn't, so the blind kid got left behind. There was a deaf kid who could see everyone boogieing, but couldn't like get down, couldn't feel the funk, because he was deaf, he couldn't hear the music, and he's like, why is everyone dancing on the street? He sees the blind kid straight up like doing the Cabbage Patch in the corner, but he's like, what's going on? And the blind kid's like, I don't know, I love this music, this is my jam, I love this flute. And then the third kid was a lame kid, which technically means that he was he was handicapped, but I like to think that the Pied Piper thought that guy was so lame, I'm not taking that kid. He's like a kid with his jacked up haircut, worse clothes than the Pied Piper, like they're just ragged and they're just super gross, and Pied Piper's trying to steal all the kids and sees this total dork in the corner dancing. The Pied Piper's like pushing him away with his foot. Get out of here, I don't want you, you're lame. You're lame. You're too lame to kidnap. That is lame. If a man bent on revenge against the city is stealing all of their children and leaves yours, you should feel embarrassed as a parent, because you know your child is lame. But anyways, so the lame kid, the blind kid, and the deaf kid, well, not the blind kid doesn't see this, but the deaf kid and Milhouse, but the deaf kid and the lame kid see the Pied Piper lead the kids off out of the city and into the mountains, and the kids were never seen again after that. So they alerted the townspeople, and they said, hey, townspeople, hey, people that we know, mom, dad. The lame kid's like, mom, dad, and they're just pretending it's not their kid. They're like, oh, who's he talking to? Is he talking to you? They tell the people in church, hey, this is what happened. People in the church come out, town's empty, except for them, and the blind kid, and the loser, and the deaf kid. So the moral of the story is pay your debts. Like, basically, the moral of the story is if you make a deal with someone, pay your deal, because otherwise all your children may get kidnapped. The end. But what's interesting is that there's actually a lot of historical evidence that something like this happened. And let's look, it's fascinating. So you hear that story and you're like, oh, this is like a folktale. And people go, yes, the Brothers Grimm and all this stuff based them on actual folktales. This isn't a folktale. There's historical records that something happened in the town of Hamlet. So, in the year 1300, so that story took place in 1284, so only about 16 years later, a stained glass window was installed in a church in the town of Hamlet. And it's been destroyed now. It's in the 1600s it was destroyed, but there are documents of what it said back then. There are writings of the time of when that window was still up saying what it showed. The stained glass window showed a Pied Piper, a man in multicolored clothing playing his flute, kids walking away. That's what it showed in the window. And the inscription, like they had the writing in the window, in the year 1284 after the birth of Christ, from Hamelin were led away 130 children born at this place, led away by a piper into a mountain. And you're thinking, okay, maybe that's just like a little fable that they put on their window for whatever reasons. Maybe it was something playful. Maybe the guy at the church was having some artistic license. 16 years after the supposed event, this window goes up in this church. In the Hamelin Town Chronicle, So like their town record in 1384, somebody wrote in the town record, "It is 100 years since our children left." This is getting creepy. In 1556, a new gate was built into the wall of this that surrounded the city of Hamlin. They put in a new gate, 1556, and there's an inscription on the gate that says, "In the year 1556, 272 years after the magician led 130 children out of the town, this portal was erected." So this was centuries before the Brothers Grimm, centuries before Goethe was writing these poems and these stories and making it a story that is well known in the Western world, the Pied Piper of Hamelin. This is long before that. If it was afterwards, you can think maybe it was some tourist trap thing where they're like, "Oh yeah, let's make this thing because everyone knows Pied Piper of Hamelin, let's make some money off it." Way before that, there are documentation, there are records, there are inscriptions saying, and those are 3 of them. There are a ton of them. I could keep going on and on about it was written like this in the 1400s, it was written like this in the 1500s. There's a ton of them. Those, I think, are the 3 kind of creepiest ones. So something did happen to the children of Hamelin. They left. There are a lot of people who have tried to figure out exactly what happened. Oddly enough, it wasn't until 1559, because the story was being told. It wasn't like this popular thing where people would be like, "Hey, let's go to Hamlin. Let's go find that place where all those kids went missing," because, again, it's 1500s. Kids are missing. The Black Plague is ravishing Europe. There's wars all the time. People aren't putting on their Mickey Mouse hats. These are like rat-shaped hats going to a place where other kids are missing. Your kids are missing. Your kids are dead somewhere in a ditch. So, anyways, that was kind of dark. It wasn't until 1559, though, that when people talked about the story of Hamlin, that they added the rats. The original story of Hamlin was a dude shows up in multicolored clothes and leads 130 kids out of the city. Almost the morality of it, the story of the townspeople deserving that, was added 300 years after it happened. The original version is a dude just shows up and takes all the kids. So there's a couple of theories of what's going on. One is it was the Pied Piper represents death, and it was the Black Plague. People don't buy that one because the Black Plague didn't hit that area of Europe until much, much later. Much later. And why would it only attack the kids? There was the idea that it was the kids being sold off into slavery, that someone showed up and enslaved all the children, that the people of the town sold the kids, and the story of the Pied Piper was basically a cover story for the fact that they all sold their kids. Some people say if you look at a Polish phone book, which sounds like the setup for a joke, but if you look at a Polish phone book, there are names in there that appear that they would have come, like surnames that would have come from Hamlin, so they think that some people may have been sold into slavery in Poland. That is possible, but the thing is like, if you have a town and you have 130 kids, and the references seem to be that the kids are taken since our children left and stuff like that. One, if you did sell your kids into slavery, why would you make any record of it at all? You want to put it in your town chronicle, you wouldn't even put a veiled reference to it. You definitely wouldn't put it in your church, saying, "Oh yeah, remember when we sold all of our children to slavery? Let's make a big stained glass window of that." You would cover it up because, one, you wouldn't want anyone else to notice it, and two, I can understand families selling their kids individually into slavery because they need some money. But for a city to function, you need a next generation to come up and be the new tax-paying citizens. So for them to sell off, for a city decision to sell off 130 future tax-paying citizens is quite odd. It's very, very short-sighted. But it's possible. That's one of the theories. The other one is that the kids left on their own because they went to go join a children's crusade, and the Pied Piper was some sort of military recruiter. But, I mean, that's kind of odd. I think he would be like, "Come on, you maggots, get up there. We're going to go kill some Muslims. Just go, 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 go." And the kids are, like, running through the streets, holding their swords above their head. He'd be wearing multicolored clothes and playing a flute. That might just be me being facetious and having a modern interpretation of it. And that would make sense, though. The military version would make sense why the blind kid, the deaf kid, and the lame kid were left behind, because they're going to go, like, storm Istanbul. They don't want them there. They're like, "Oh, you're going to be dragging us down, blind kid, deaf kid, and lame kid. You just suck, so you stay here." None of those theories are bulletproof. The only thing that we know historically is that 130 kids disappeared from a town in a single day, because some of the written references will say on June 26th, and other versions reference that day, and then the historical documents will also reference that day. So if it was the Black Plague, they just don't fall at the same time. If they are getting sold into slavery, maybe. If they're getting recruited, maybe. Although, interestingly enough, the road that the kids walk down to leave town is named, now it's named, it wasn't named that before, but now it's named Bungelusenstrasse. Bungelusenstrasse, which means street without drums. And apparently, even to this day, it is illegal to play music or dance on that street. Is it possible that some weirdo dressed all like the Joker on acid showed up at a town, played a little music, and led 130 kids, never to be seen again? It seems far-fetched, but it's possible. We've had things like Dancing Mania. We did an episode a long time ago about that, where people had this compulsive need to dance, and they just danced from town to town, and people would like become paralyzed from dancing too much. People would die and drown on all sorts of stuff. It's weird to think that a story you hear as a child could be true. A story that's as fanciful as this could be true. A man showing up at a town and kidnapping 130 people, 130 children in one day, and those kids never being seen again. Or the Pied Piper. It really, it's funny because you can put the Pied Piper in one of two categories. You could put him in the category as some sort of spirit, or some sort of like it's a man. I believe it was a man who did this, but that he had some sort of mystical power, through the power of his flute, could get people to do what he wanted to. We have to dismiss the rats, because that wasn't added until a long time before. So just looking at the story of someone coming to town and stealing 130 kids, you can look at it as this was a man who had some sort of magical power over the children, or this was just a man who literally kidnapped 130 kids somehow. And it's funny because it's one of those things that it's just a matter of degrees. Can a person kidnap one kid at a time? Absolutely. Can a person kidnap 2 kids at a time? Absolutely. Can a person kidnap 5 kids at a time? Maybe. We're basically just looking at the raw numbers. If the story was, a man came to the town of Hamlin with a flute, and 1 child disappeared, you wouldn't even bat your eye. You wouldn't even think, well, you would feel bad for the kid, but I mean, you wouldn't then immortalize it in a legend. But it's the numbers that makes it so high. It's not the fact that a stranger comes to town and a child or a few children disappear. It's the fact that there's 130 of them on a particular day. What I think's fascinating is that the story, the version of with the rats in it that was added 300 years later, makes the story more comfortable. Because then the villains of the story are the townspeople who didn't live up to their end of the bargain. You add the rats because then it makes the people in the town the bad guys. The Pied Piper is the wronged party. You're not going to pay me my 1,000 gold German currency? I'm taking your kids. And when you're reading that, you get a moral from that story. Pay your debts. Which is funny. Ironic for me to say I owe the IRS a bunch of money, but pay your debts. And I'm paying it. IRS, I'm paying it. I'm getting my money together. Pay your debts is the moral of the story. And then you turn the page and you go to the tortoise and the hare, or the 3 bears, Goldilocks and 3 bears. Go to the next moral. That's comfortable. Because then you realize that if you pay your debts, then you are fine. You move on to the next moral lesson. But the original story of the Pied Piper is much more unsettling. A small town somewhere in Germany. Everyone minding their own business, and things are going okay. And then on June 26th, this religious holiday, the adults all go to the church, and when they come out, streets are silent. They hear no babies, they see no kids running through the street, toys just left on the ground. Because in that version of the story, they are still punished, but they don't know why they were punished. They don't know what they did to deserve 130 children disappearing forever from their city. And the only moral lesson in that story is that life is cruel and unfair. And IRS, you will get your money very, very soon. DeadRabbitRadio@gmail.com is going to be our email address. You can also hit us up at Facebook.com/DeadRabbitRadio. Twitter is @Jason O. Carpenter. Dead Rabbit Radio is the daily paranormal, conspiracy, and true crime podcast. You don't have to listen to it every day, but I'm glad you listened to it today. Have a great one, guys.